father of Hollywood.com, along with Truthwins.com, presents Dreamland, New Beginnings, written by Dr. Galen Whitley Keith, narrated by Keith Whitley. Chapter 9. The vast hall of the Los Angeles Union Station stood in uneasy silence at dawn. The iron vault of its glass roof swallowed the first rays of sunlight, painting shadows across the platform where only a few workers hurried their chores. Samuel Ross and his niece Gigi entered slowly, their valises in hand, eyes glancing about the cavernous emptiness. Their train waited, breathing steam in the pale light, as though impatient to be gone. "This journey has flown by," Samuel said with a weary yet satisfied smile. "I only wish we had another week. The city, even in its roughness, it enchants me." "Me too," Gigi began, though her eyes flicked nervously into the shadows. "I could not imagine—" She stopped short. Shapes stirred. Two men sidled from the gloom with predatory silence. "Frank Thompson and Joe Preston." Frank's grin twisted cruel, his hand already on the knife at his belt. "Give me your money, old man, and no one gets hurt." His voice rang against the iron beams above them. Joe drew his derringer with a flick. His eyes scanned, wary for the guards. "Quickly now." Samuel stiffened, placing himself between the men and Gigi. Every wrinkle of his aged face tightened into defiance. "Stand back," he growled as his niece clutched at his arm. Frank lunged with his knife. Samuel swung a fist as if he were 30 years younger. The blow cracked against Frank's jaw and sent him sprawling to the boards. He groaned, rubbed his face, and snarled, "You've got fight in you, old man." Samuel braced himself again, sweat glistening at his temple. As Frank came up once more, the blade flashed, grazing Samuel's cheek, tracing blood across his skin, before Samuel seized his wrist and felled him with another sharp strike. Gigi shrieked, her voice carried across the cavern. "Help! Somebody help us!" Joe only smirked, his pistol hand steady, his eyes darting for watchmen. "Not my fight, I'll keep lookout," he muttered coldly. Breathing hard, Samuel pulled his wallet. "Here," he snapped. "Take the money and be done with this. We've a train to catch." He thrust bills toward them, his hand shaking with rage and exhaustion. Frank and Joe looked at each other, but before Frank could snatch the prize, Joe's eyes widened. Another man had stepped down from the train. Tall, broad-shouldered, his coat swinging open to reveal a revolver beneath. Hobart Johnstone Whitley. The derringer flashed. The shot cracked loud against the hollow station wall, off by inches. Whitley drew with iron calm and fired once. Frank's scream split the silence. His knife hit the ground, blood spurting from his arm. In an instant, both ruffians turned, skittering backward toward the shadows. "Skedaddle!" Joe barked, pale beneath the smoke. Together they fled, swallowed into darkness. Whitley raised his revolver, his eyes cold steel. He might have fired, but lowered the weapon instead and holstered it with control. The world stilled. Samuel bent forward, breath ragged, the blood still trickling from his cheek. Gigi shook as she pressed her handkerchief against the wound, then turned sharply to glare at Whitley. "Well," she admonished, her voice trembling but firm, "you took your sweet time about it." Startled, Whitley blinked, astonished at her tone. "Excuse me?" "I knew you were coming," Gigi declared, her eyes locked on him. "But why did you wait? They could have killed us." "Child," Samuel exclaimed, "he just saved our lives." "You were doing just fine yourself, Uncle," Gigi muttered stubbornly. "But he might have spared you that cut if he'd been a bit quicker." Whitley straightened, recovering his composure. "Do we know each other?" Gigi stepped forward, extending her slender hand with sudden boldness. "Gigi Ross," she announced, a smile tugging her lips. Whitley bowed slightly, took her fingers lightly, and kissed them in the manner of a gentleman. When his eyes rose to meet hers, something unspoken passed, recognition, though they had never met. "My name," he said softly, "is H.J. Whitley." "Well," she teased, "you are the romantic one." The shrill cry of "All aboard!" cut the scene short. The conductor ushered the last of the passengers up the steps. Samuel insisted they hurry, wiping again at his cheek. Whitley walked behind them, unable to keep his gaze from Gigi. "Are you coming, Mr. Whitley?" she called, glancing back with a challenge in her eyes. "By heaven," he answered, "I would not miss this ride for gold nor glory." Then, catching himself, he added quickly, "Forgive me, miss, for such blasphemy." "Good," she replied primly, "because I expect you to be a gentleman." He grinned, a grin that carried both gravity and mirth, and followed them aboard. That night, the dining car swayed under a canopy of stars. Every table brimmed with travelers in wool and satin. Waiters bustled with platters steaming of beef and potatoes. At the far end sat Samuel and Gigi. At the other, Whitley entered with a porter. The man gestured discreetly. Soon he returned to Samuel, bowing. "Sir, the car is full. Might Mr. Whitley share your table this evening?" Samuel glanced sidelong at his niece. She studied Whitley, eyes bright with curiosity, pretending indifference. "If you wish, uncle." Samuel smiled faintly. "Then on one condition, I pay for the gentleman's supper. After such gallantry this morning, I cannot imagine he would refuse it." Whitley accepted warmly and joined them, removing his gloves with steady grace. As he sat across from Gigi, he leaned slightly forward. "I am curious, Miss Ross. Why? Why did you expect me this morning?" Her answer came swiftly with all the fire of conviction. "Because I saw you, weeks ago, in a dream, carried out precisely as it came to pass." "You mean?" Whitley's eyes narrowed, intrigued. "A foresight?" "Exactly so," she said lightly, though the seriousness in her eyes betrayed her. "Uncle says I inherited the gift from my mother, and I know it is true." She glanced at Samuel. "Why else would I not fear that day?" Whitley studied her gravely in silence. "Then, Miss Ross," he murmured finally, "perhaps destiny itself put me here tonight." The meal continued with laughter and strange ease. Gigi jesting that she might solve mysteries before Whitley could, Samuel amused at their sparring, Whitley caught between admiration and wonder at the young woman before him. Beyond the desert, the moon rose high, pale and full. Joshua trees reached twisted arms against the horizon, the train smoke drifting into the vast western sky. Through the dining car window, the three could be glimpsed in laughter, their voices lost beneath the roar of the whistle. The iron horse carried them onward, three lives converging by fate toward futures none could yet imagine. And in the quiet between the steel wheels and the stars, H.J. Whitley knew this meeting was no accident, but the beginning of something that could change his world forever. Come back next Wednesday to hear the next chapter of Dreamland, New Beginnings, written by Dr. Galen Whitley Keith, narrated by Keith Whitley.